Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Roy L. If you're new here, just go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. It's not hard, it takes like 2 seconds. Today's topic, just because you can, doesn't mean you should. So, I was at my PRN job the other day. I'm not gonna tell you where that's at, but I was there the other day, and at the beginning of shift change, we had a code blue. Excuse me. For those who don't know what a code blue is, that's basically a cardiac arrest. So we have these old school phones and they leave a text message saying code blue, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And it tells you what part of the hospital it's at and what room. So for this hospital, we have 2 respiratory therapists and I'm in the ER currently. So I get my message, I drop everything that I'm doing because I'm doing a breathing treatment, trying to get a blood gas on somebody at the same time, because that's more important. You have to pick and choose your battles. So I let the nurse know, hey, I'm about to go to the code. I'll be right back. If the treatment's going, can you please shut it off? They're like, yeah. Okay, so you go ahead and do that. Now I'm running to the other side of the hospital. I finally get to the room and there's like 52 nurses in the room. And when I get a little closer to the patient's bed, I'm seeing nurses say, hey, excuse me, sir. Sir, are you awake? Sir. If there is a cardiac arrest called, I'm trying to figure out why nobody's doing compressions. So me and my coworker were like, hey guys, I know we're not doctors, but you guys need to go ahead and start pushing on his chest and circulating some blood in there while we get this ambu bag set up and I can give him some breaths. Oh, yeah. So they finally do it. Some other nurses are establishing IVs, trying to get a pulse, trying to hook up, like what I say, IVs, trying to get a pulse, putting up the pads on them, just the routine thing you do whenever there is a cardiac arrest. And, we're still bagging because we're waiting on the doctor and, the house supervisor to like monitor and give calls on what we need to do. Epi and things like that. Excuse me. I made some really good coffee. But anyway. So what happened then? So anyway, they're still doing compressions. I'm giving rescue breaths. My coworker's setting up she's getting a tube, a 7.5 tube, getting the stylet, getting an ET holder. And one of the nurses, she's a little bit older. I don't know what she was doing, but it's like she was trying to do my job. She was like, as I was bagging the patient, I know how to bag the patient. So I'm bagging the patient and she's like trying to get to like the head of the bed and try to squeeze the bag for me. And I'm like, ma'am, I got it. And she goes, you need to bag faster. And I'm looking at her like, ma'am, you need to let respiratory do respiratory. I went to school for this. So after I made that comment, basically she has not talked to me since. I basically told her, you also need to be doing compressions if I'm distributing this oxygen. It has nothing to do with bagging faster. That's not how that works. So the doctor was in there when I said that, and he did like a little smirk because I don't know what that nurse was even trying to do to begin with. And anyway, we get a heart rhythm, we get a pulse back, but the guy's pulse just kept going down. So he just kept bradying down. When I say bradying, that means bradycardia. So it's just getting lower, low heart rate. So for some reason, we had to like transfer this patient to the ICU to even code him some more. And this patient is, if I recall, was 96 or 97 years old. And you know what sucks? It's like, I don't know why some of these, I do know. Some of these families or even the doctors try to convince the patient's family or the patient themselves that there's a possibility, like if they put themselves as a full code, it's a possibility that they could come back. And I understand, I'm not saying, don't do that for your loved ones. But if you're 96 or 97 years old and we got to break your ribs during like compressions, like that's just suffering. We're literally torturing your body. We're breaking all your ribs just to push on your heart to distribute blood around your body. Think about that. You're 96, 97 years old. You're very brittle and little, and you snap like crab legs. That's what it's like doing compressions on somebody who's 96, 97. I've done that before. It's not the best feeling. It actually feels disgusting whenever you feel each and every rib with every thrust that you're doing. Like, it's just nasty. So anyway, we're in the ICU now, and instead of 52 nurses, there are at least 12 now. And the patient's family finally came in and said, hey, stop the compressions, because they saw what we were doing to that poor man. Being 96 and 97, that's not a good sight to see. And also, like, the tube, after we inserted the tube and, attached the ET holder, there was blood up all in the tube, and it was just disgusting. Like, torturing that man, literally, for what? Let him go see God. That's what let him go to heaven. That's how I see it. But I realize some families like to keep these family members alive so that they could get, like, benefits. Like, if that family member who's sick is in the military and they're getting, like, VA checks every month, some families live off of that, just so that they could get by. And me being a first-time RT, I never knew that was a thing. A lot of families like to keep people on ventilators just so that they could, to get the money. And that's so greedy. I've seen people who refuse to take people off ventilators just so that they can make it to the next month to get a check. That's sad. And I've seen people so greedy that they would fight the families in the ICU about, who makes the calls if this person on the ventilator gets to live or die. And that's why you gotta have a will when it comes to these things, because it's not a pretty sight. Especially, I've been an RT for a year, like I said, and I can pretty much tell if someone can be on a ventilator or if they're not gonna come off the ventilator. And if we pull them off the ventilator, they're not gonna make it because they're gonna go into respiratory distress. And I don't know, you just see how people are when it comes to other people's health, because that's just something not to play with. People are very greedy when it comes to stuff like that. Just for a check. And I actually appreciate how there's attorney of powers just in case if things like that happen, because some people will be on ventilators for so long, and the hospitals that I'm at aren't long-term, they're not long-term ventilator. Like, we try to get people off the ventilators pretty fast. You don't want to be on that thing long because then you become pretty much dependent on it. But we don't keep people on ventilators pretty long. And there's some families like, yeah, they'll make it. And they'll try to bring hope to everybody. But you have the patient on like 8 pressors, a tube down their throat, and a bunch of wires all over them. And they got a, the EEG done to them. And there's no type of brain activity. And sometimes the families are just bringing false hope to other family members, trying to keep this patient alive. And I'm just like, somebody's got to tell these people. Somebody's got to educate them and let them know that this isn't okay. You're literally keeping a dead body alive. You're just literally keeping the organs alive. There's no soul in there. I could tell you that. I've seen it to where, I don't know what this word is called, but you know how whenever, if you did do this, if you were younger and you went fishing and maybe you caught a fish and you leave it in the cooler and their eyes are like extremely wide and there's like nothing there, like no pupils or like nothing in there, and then it's just like still. I've seen that. They're not there. That's why it's important to educate these families, especially if people are like up there in age. Like, you can't keep them alive because you're literally letting them suffer. But that's not my call to make. That's the doctor's role, and he or she has to educate them if the patient's gonna make it there or not. Now, this comes to play when I said just because you can doesn't mean you should. I've seen nurses try to play that game too, and I don't think that they should be doing that, saying that, oh, this patient isn't gonna make it, this patient will make it, because then, you know, it keeps the patients on the ventilators longer, and I've seen that too. And I'm not gonna tell you where I've seen that at what hospital, but people just need to be a lot more realistic when it comes to people's health. If you're like 90 something, 80 something, and you got pulmonary diseases, you got airways that don't want to open, and you got fluid all in your lungs and nothing's working, Lasix, bronchoscopy, and it just keeps coming back, it's just, you're just suffering. And I'm not trying to be negative in this video, but I'm just trying to educate you guys, like, how families can be in the hospital. Of course we do everything that we can. It's never like we don't try, but sometimes you gotta know enough's enough for somebody, because you're just torturing them, and I think personally they should just let people like that pass peacefully, and enter the next stage of their end life, and, you know, go to heaven and things within that nature. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. Let's educate these families, do the best we can, and go from there. Thanks for watching.